Join the stars of the Ancient Aliens TV show, Eric Von Doniken, as he returns to Manchester after an amazing response to his last presentation. David Childress will guide you through the evidence left behind. Mike Barrow will take you to other worlds, where Nick Pope will present the real X-Files. Paula Harris will share incredible testimonies. It's time to believe and raise consciousness. Join like-minded souls on Saturday, June 23rd, 2018 for Awakening. What do you believe?
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching The Moore Show and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. Now for the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Laura Eisenhower. Now Laura is a global alchemist, cosmic mythologist and intuitive astrologist. She is an international acclaimed speaker who has presented her work worldwide. Laura is the great-granddaughter of President Dwight David Eisenhower. Now she is considered by many to be one of North America's leading researchers on health, exopolitics, alchemy, metaphysics and galactic history. Laura Eisenhower, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Good to be here.
It's beautiful to have you on. Now, Eisenhower, tell us about that. So your great-grandfather was the one of the presidents of the United States, is that right?
Yes, 34th president.
34th president. And, okay, so what was that like growing up knowing that?
Very interesting. When you're in your younger years, you're starting to kind of get an idea of, okay, this family member was well known. All right. Okay. He was president. Okay. Now what did he do? And was this a positive thing as far as his policies, what he was up against? I always felt he just was such a good man. Like I could feel his spirit energy. He actually was making himself known to me, even though he had already transitioned just in spirit form since I was a little kid. So I was sort of getting to know him through that, but just on the surface sort of world stage level, I had a lot of questions. Okay, what was his administration all about? And, the Second World War, he was general of the Second World War. And, what's going on with this war in the here and now? And as I was growing up and observing the family energy and getting to know what was presented to him, what that era kind of, the demands of that era were, and then sort of unraveling the deeper layers of what was really going on. I've gotten a pretty large picture of it all. So to me, it was almost like, okay, this works with the kind of mission I have. I'm here to help in this window period. I've been working for a long time in connection with organic ascension timelines and things related to the stargates on the planet, the balancing of the masculine and feminine. So it seemed to fit in really well that, okay, I'm related to this person that, played a huge role and was a president that had contact. And so had that exopolitical connection as well. And being a very multidimensionally aware person, it was a strong source of focus for me to be able to connect dots. And it just gave me the opportunity to not be able to do anything but connect dots because it was so personal to me. And, I already have this personal soul journey and I was like, okay, well, this is an important piece and I'm glad I'm born into this to really pay a lot of attention to what this is all about. So I was just busy, really, very different from the rest of my family. But the surreal part of it is just the level of influence that a president holds, of course. And we have all these different presidential bloodlines that are Illuminati driven that don't really have our best interests at heart. So I sort of see him as the first whistleblower, okay, giving us a warning about the military industrial complex. And then my life journey taking me into what those deeper layers are all about. It's just been very interesting to be able to achieve something in the larger picture as far as disclosure, bringing more clarity to what was really going on during that administration, because not a whole lot was able to get leaked back then. So it's given me the opportunity to give it more of a voice.
Right. Okay. So was his name mentioned in the family dinners? From time to time, what was he talked about?
Oh gosh, yeah. The whole family kind of revolves around him. I spent a lot of time growing up with, my family, and there's just a lot of honoring of him. Most of my relatives write books. My uncle David Eisenhower wrote a big book about World War II, and my grandfather, Ike's son, has written a ton of books, and he served in the war and was right by Eisenhower's side. So, you just look through family albums and you see them, in Germany going to these different war camps that people say, oh, those didn't happen, those aren't real. It's like, well, I saw them in the family albums, like personal family albums. Yeah, and there are a lot of events that I went to, like the anniversaries or bicentennials of, I think that's what it's called, at the White House, or, so there's just a lot still going on. I mean, my mom lives in DC. She works in DC. She has something called the Eisenhower Group and the Eisenhower Institute. And, we all kind of connect with different parts of his administration. I'm definitely like going into the exopolitical and some of those deeper layers that, laws were put in place in 1947 that you couldn't speak about this stuff if you were part of the government, even if you were president, without, ramifications. So,
well, what did the family think? What did the family think of the work that you're doing now?
Well, it's very difficult stuff to talk about. There's a lot of compartmentalism that was going on back then that is still going on today. But the thing is, there's so much love and respect amongst all of us that they respect my position. They see the necessity of what I do. They don't fully understand it. There always has to be a level of carefulness with information. There's, disinformation. There's uncertainties about certain things that you cannot prove. But when it comes down to like a personal experience, which I had being recruited to go off planet in 2006, I think that really sort of shook them. Like, okay, well, this isn't just Laura, diving into the rabbit holes on the internet. She actually was up close and personal with this. But we've decided sort of as a family that it's easier to come together and just bond and, connect on a family level than a political level, getting wrapped up into this stuff because, you got a bunch of young kids and cousins and their children, and you don't want to sit there at the dinner table during Thanksgiving trying to figure out the Mars agenda. You just want to come together and really, bond and really feel into the family energy. And, I've gotten communication over the years from my mom, from other family members, and even my granddad, Ike's son, before he transitioned, just the amount of support they have and what they see in me. And they honor who I am as a person. They trust my integrity. But a lot of this is really hard to wrap one's head around because just like anybody who's getting in touch with disclosure, it really rocks the foundation of your world, especially if you've invested in a belief system that you find was built on deception. And I'm not saying they've bought into it, but to discuss those things, requires some extra time and space, probably away from the younger family members to just really, get a grip on it. But I mean, I think they have read some of my things, and I sort of get this nodding approval, just kind of like, we're grateful. We'll just leave it at that.
Right.
We'll have these larger discussions maybe down the road, but it's like the timing hasn't been that great, but we've made some distance here and there.
And you mentioned with President Eisenhower, what was his role in disclosure then?
Well, the warning about the military-industrial complex, there's channelings that people are bringing through that help one to see, okay, what is all this about? What are these contact experiences about? What is the Anunnaki all about? And where's the roots of all this? The ET government treaties originated, long before him. And, there's information that's coming out now that feels like really, really legit channeling. I mean, I'm very skeptical about certain channels. So there's a lot more pieces coming in through other, channelers that are bringing in the information. But in his administration, what well, the warning about the military-industrial complex, working real hard to try and defeat the Nazis, but the war wasn't really won, so there were a lot of negotiations and things going on behind closed doors that were kept from the public, trying to negotiate with the Nazis who, weren't about to give up. They had gone off to different bases and posts. In Antarctica, we hear about Admiral Byrd went on a mission to try and take them down, but didn't go so well. And then they flew some UFOs, I guess, over the White House, and they realized they didn't have anything close to that level of technology, so they had to consider it a surrender. And so, his part of disclosure is, his final speech, the warning that he gave, without really giving us the blatant, details. There is this rise of power, this misplaced power, and what is it all about? So he kind of left us breadcrumbs that, didn't really get taken seriously until recently when, whistleblowers have come forward that not all of them made it. Some of them got murdered. So that just shows the level of secrecy. And we're talking like NSA and, laws put in place to keep this stuff secret. So, he sort of opened the window to give us an idea of what he was dealing with, that he didn't really have any power. All the alien technology ended up in the hands of MJ-12, and he lost control of his ability to manage it because the negotiations they were making superseded his ability to do much about it. Because it's much different to be, human working with military that's slowly getting infiltrated with not the level of weaponry that could even, go up against that kind of thing. Bombs, nuclear energy, and all that kind of stuff, he was not advocating for. And he thought the bombing in Japan was absolutely unnecessary. So, I think he was really holding the heart of real peace and real concern for the human race. His principles, his mindset towards humanity, all of that was in the right place. His heart was in the right place. But, to be that compromised and to be the scapegoat also, where everybody's pointing fingers, I think people are starting to realize the presidency doesn't have any real power. He briefed Kennedy. Kennedy got assassinated, about the UFO issue. You do all you can, but then people are dying. People are getting killed. Your family's being threatened. I'm sure his was. He even mentioned that in one of the channelings. He had, 8 heart attacks. The stress that he was under, not knowing, how to handle this. So, I think the disclosure is still happening. He opened the window with that final speech, but to this day, we're still understanding what that was really about. So it's sort of a disclosure that got triggered and activated way back, but we're all, still wrapping our heads around what the heck that all meant.
Sure. So when Roswell happened, the potential of Roswell happening with the Roswell Crash, was he government? Was he in government then?
He was not president then. That was 1947.
Right.
Truman.
It was Truman, was it? Right. Yeah. Okay. So that was before him. Okay. I just wondered actually. You mentioned something really out there then. You said that you were recruited back in 2006 to go off planet.
Yeah, there were things set up in the Eisenhower administration connected to their contact with other beings. They're called Alternatives 1, 2, and 3. And anybody who Googles Alternative 3, it's about colonization of Mars. And in the event of catastrophe, it was presented that in order to protect the human genome and to protect, human DNA in the event of cataclysms, that we would have this other option. And that all sounds well and good. It makes sense that we would want to have a sort of safety net in the event that something disastrous might happen. But when I was presented with it, something didn't feel right. The way it was presented to me, it was through a person that was a partner that they were sort of using as bait. They had identified us through Looking Glass Technologies in a past life, and they recognized that we had a connection. And they used him, they pulled him into their project. And he was sort of arranging this thing. And it was presented as like a protection for all the, reasons one might research or hear about why they set up these alternatives. My intuition was telling me, okay, if they have HARP technologies, if they have the ability to create superstorms, if they have the ability to engineer artificial timelines in an apocalyptic scenario, is this really natural? Does Mother Earth really need us to evacuate? And do I really want to be one of those people that gets evacuated? Because I was downloaded my mission, or very in touch with my mission since I was a kid, that has to do with this ascension window period, which really relates to the Earth grids, the stargates, and our expansion into multidimensional energy, our movement into higher Earth energies. And how am I going to do that if I'm on Mars? And nobody's really listening to my thoughts or opinions, and it feels very controlling. And I had this sense that that original agenda got infiltrated, and it was more about, certain chosen individuals going off to Mars, going into underground bases, while the rest of the planet's compromised into a new world order scenario. And all these technologies are being hoarded, and we're not really taking care of our Earth. Especially if you can simulate or create an artificial timeline that has nothing to do with the natural progression of this planetary body, which is seeded with ascension, which I was well aware of. So in my suspicions, I did a lot of research, and I wasn't finding anything right off the bat. But after about 2 weeks of really putting my head into it, I discovered that the group that he was involved with were connected to my labs, psychotronic weaponry, mind control, gang stalking, and all these, negative things, and that they did have access to, or the use of, some of these technologies that can manipulate weather. So I'm like, okay, this is why big red flags were going up. And then in 2010, I started to publicly speak about it, and I guess you could say I sort of blew the whistle, and started to merge my information or match my information with other whistleblowers that were aware of the Mars agenda, not just aware of it, but who had actually served on Mars in the military and had gotten age reversed, age regression. So it looked like to them they had never even gone, and they had to retrieve their memories. And anybody hearing this sort of thing for the first time, it's like, well, gosh, do these technologies actually exist? Is this really real? And yeah, they've been kept from us. Not like we would want to necessarily use some of them, because a lot of them are for the means of control, non-consensual. You're using kids in my lab programs to serve this larger secret space program agenda. And because we didn't really win the Second World War, the defense departments and all these different groups, got infiltrated. And so instead of these agendas being for the betterment of humanity or for the protection of humanity, it has to do more with the control of it, so that only some benefit and the rest don't. The rest of humanity is compromised while, that's the elitist mentality. And I just didn't want anything to do with it. I thought to myself, it's better to expose all this and bring it out into the open, because our tax dollars are being used for these black ops projects, and that's just not a fair scenario. We're not really given free will when we're being kept in the dark. We're making choices from a lack of clarity versus having the information. And so their excuse is, oh, well, we didn't think that humanity could handle the truth. And it's like, well, we've gotten, people have gotten their limbs blown off in war, and they can handle that. It's like, I think they can handle the truth if we're setting up.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Well, no, actually, let me just go back there. Not absolutely. No. Some of this is new to me as well. So I don't know if you answered the question about how, because you mentioned a big ago you were to be recruited to go off planet in 2006. Have I mistaken what you said there?
No, I was recruited, but I refused to go. So they said, you're going to go anyway.
Who was recruiting you? Who was recruiting you?
Well, they used my partner as bait, which means, okay, so basically I went somewhere and I met this person and we started seeing each other, and he was going to these secret meetings. I was living in the Washington, D.C. area at the time.
Right.
I'd back home because there was all this control on me. I couldn't understand it. I didn't have all the literature, or like, it was all a mystery to me. It wasn't like, I could just sit there and watch Project Camelot or hear other whistleblowers. None of that was really circulating that much. It was just in the beginning stages, really. And so I ended up in the DC area. I met this person. He was going to secret meetings, and slowly but surely he started to bring me into the agenda. But I thought I just met somebody who was involved in this stuff, and I could go or not go. It was my choice, because, this was just a partner that was going to go anyway. And then I found out about 6 months into the relationship, maybe longer, that he was specifically sent on a mission to bring me into this, and that I didn't really have a choice. And they had been tracking me, and they had chosen me specifically, and so I was like, okay, well, let me talk to these folks. They're called the Aviary, like a bird aviary. And if you research what the Aviary is all about, now there's more information about the darker side of, who they're playing with. Before, you wouldn't find much on them except they are like a think tank, studying UFO phenomena and different abduction scenarios. But my intuition was telling me that they had set up some military abduction, and he was channeling something, but they had like set up the scenario, but weren't admitting to it, and they were using him on a certain level. So, to make a long story short, through a lot of research and understanding these people that he was dealing with that were coming up in emails, he was saying, the word handler, he had a handler. They were convincing him that he was doing something good for humanity. So there's a lot of well-intentioned people that are serving dark agendas that don't realize it. So I was trying to say, hey, I'm finding out information on these guys, and, you're getting phone calls and disappearing for days at a time and not remembering where you're going. I'm like, you're being, obviously controlled. And so, I researched my way into enough validation of what my intuition was telling me that gave me even more strength to get out of it. But getting out of it wasn't easy because they didn't want me to. So I had to become public to sort of protect me. And I wanted to share this because we have the right to know what's going on in secrecy.
So he's out of your life now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned something else interesting there about age regression as well, about people that are able to have age regression. That sounds absolutely science fiction in one sense. And I don't know where I stand on that. Possibly. Who knows? Is it true? I don't know.
Well, see, it's happened to me. So, I don't have fixed beliefs. I have an open mind to everything that I hear. And when more than one whistleblower that has been experiencing the same sort of scenario, memories of serving on another planet, and their experience of age regression. Andrew Bishago, has clear memories of being age regressed. And so does Corey Good. So does Captain K. So does Michael Reif, where they served for like 17 years and they were age regressed back so that it was like 5 minutes, 5 years had gone by. So it's like, yeah, it's really far out stuff. It's not something that anybody should immediately say, okay, that must have happened. That must be true. But when you have a bunch of people saying the same thing, and we really look at our galactic history. We look at the sort of technologies that exist outside of what we've been shown or given, and we, look at the larger picture.
So age regression is where you remember yourself being an older person, having lived a life of an older person, and then you're then regressed back to a younger body, but with all the memories intact of that older life.
You have to be able to. They wipe your memory. So you have to be able to access your higher mind, which pretty much records everything. If they wipe the hard drive, like the brain, you're not going to remember. But if you're able to connect with a different part of yourself that you can't really wipe, and you begin to have trigger experiences that start to bring in memories, maybe in your dreams, maybe...
Right.
No. There's certain people like Duncan O'Finian who went through a MRI or a CT scan, and they recognized, he was implanted. Something went crazy on the machine, picking up on this implant. And, that was the beginning of his journey to begin to remember things that he wasn't meant to remember. And so being able to bust through your mind being wiped, being able to access the memories when you hear these different stories and they're all saying the same thing. It's similar to people who have had abduction experiences. You can hear a bunch of different stories of people that don't even know each other, and they're describing the same sort of beings, the same sort of medical procedures that they might have underwent. And, when these stories all connect and they're all similar, who would want to make these things up? Because not only are you considered crazy, but, it's not like it's a moneymaker. You end up getting ostracized, and, people don't necessarily immediately resonate with it unless you've gone through it yourself. And so they form support groups, like John Mack from Harvard University had a group of individuals. And, there's a lot of those kind of support groups all over the world of people that are sharing these similar experiences. And then you look even deeper and, okay, there's, Mars agendas, there's military service that involves these advanced technologies that...
Well, when we talk about a Mars agenda, I can't leave the confines of the Earth, and nor can you. And in my lifetime, I won't be going to Mars. But if I could go to Mars now, and I can't, if I could, and I go there now, and there's absolutely nothing there, what does that say for the research that you've been doing on Mars? Is that because we're not looking in the same timeline as where your research is going? Are we looking into a different reality with your research?
Well, that's very possible. I mean, why can some people see extraterrestrials or see angels or channel ascended masters and others can't? Well, there's also distortions and all that too. There's false channelings. There's negative entities that pose as advanced races or ascended masters, and and then there's the legit experience. And so one always has to try and get to the bottom of, are these implanted memories, or is this a cover up to something else? Is this what is real? So the most important thing in this field is to look at the data, look at the information, but with discernment, and to look at all the different loopholes that might be present, that would make something false or something real. But I mean, a lot of people are having positive contact and those memories get wiped, and then they have a negative experience in order to sabotage their contact with a higher dimensional race.
Who's wiping them? Who's wiping them?
Well, they have technologies to do that. So
Who?
Well, I mean, it's military. It's NJ12 and some of these, smaller groups that have their hands on the alien technology that are working with these races that, have this agenda. We look at Area 51 and, and the aerospace divisions and, all these different sectors of our society that are morphed into this, larger agenda that they're serving. The secret space program is multi-layered. You have the secret space program that's closer to the Earth, that's related to the military industrial complex and different rings, drug rings, and, all the MK Ultra, the Monarch programming, and, using humans as weapons, as computer databases, who trauma-based mind control you in order to get you to do their dirty work. Then you have the upper levels of the secret space programs that are a whole nother level. And, different individuals that are having different experiences in this multi-layered secret space program. So, yeah, I mean, if any of us went to Mars, I don't know what we would see. But those that have been there, speak of, these underground bases or colonies that aren't so much on the surface. That's why, we might not see them through satellite images. But at the same time, there's cover-ups, in NASA. And that's not the real space program.
Yeah, I mean, unless these people are traveling to different dimensional Earths, and on those dimensional Earths, the technology is there for them to get there. But definitely on this dimensional Earth, I've not seen any human technology or secret technology to get them myself. Where they're picking this information up for, I don't know. But I do believe in the UFOs and unidentified flying objects, as in crafts not from this Earth, and I do believe they're interdimensional. So I always wonder, if we were to go to space now, how busy would it be? Would it be absolutely dead, or would there be something there? Would there be?
Well, I think there'd be something there. I mean, there's a lot of individuals all over the world that have sightings and experiences with extraterrestrials, abductions, contact experiences. And, some of these crafts are reverse engineered and they're piloted by military, and they're not, the original alien craft. They were, recreated, reverse engineered. I mean, if, people do research on Bob Lazar, I think that's his name, and Dan Burrish, and everybody that was involved in Area 51 and some of these underground bases like Dulce, the Dulce Wars, and Phil Schneider had firsthand experience. He was a part of, building these underground bases. Had no idea what he was really doing. He was told something different, and then he realized, what it was all about, and ended up blowing the whistle. There's just a lot that's being kept from us. And when you look at how humans aren't able to get a grip on it, well, it's the mass mind control that comes through the media, that comes through politics, that comes through, they completely distract us, and people are sort of living in a trance. It's hard to break out of the dimensional levels of a 3D mind when this is how we're raised and this is what we're taught. to be able to bust through it and see the bigger picture. For those that are and do, we're hearing their voices more, and once you can sort of perceive it, the evidence is there. But when you can't perceive it, your brain is going to shut down your ability to really access it or even take it seriously.
Yeah. I hear you. But I don't think that I live in a world where I can't go and do the things that I want to do, and pursue the passions that I want to do. I think personally I live in a very free world, and I don't feel that no more. I don't feel that the big brother or the government's controlling me I can't do this or that. I feel that anything's possible, and I feel free.
Well, that's because you've broken through the mind control. It's either people are being controlled, but they feel a certain level of freedom in that control because they can't see far outside of it, or a person has really done the inner work or breaking through the programs. And you can exist in a higher dimensional energy and still be in this physical density because your consciousness has been able to expand beyond it. I mean, it's either, people are unconscious to the control, or they're aware of the control and they feel compromised by that control, or a person just allows their creative energy to function outside of those controls, which sounds like where you're at. And that's where I'm at. I don't feel controlled. I mean, I want to assist other humans in breaking free from the deceptions, the betrayals, the misinformation, and where's their truth though? It's really in listening to each other and the experiencers, and then the whistleblowers, and just going from there. So I'm interested in investigating all this stuff and bringing the information forward, but not from like a victim place of I'm not feeling controlled. I feel like I'm moving into a destiny that is free of all this, but those that are compromised, that aren't aware of it, need to make choices based on having that information to consider versus not having it at all.
I mean, do you feel that before you incarnated as Laura, that you chose to have this experience that you're having right now, and you knew as a soul that all the restrictions and all the issues that this world encompasses were going to be there, but you were so desperate for this experience?
I wouldn't say I was desperate for it. It's more of a necessity. Like, this has to be done, whether I want to do it or not. I just play a role here in all of it. And yeah, I was prepared as a child. I was really aware, from the get-go when I was born, of my larger mission. And, you have to have your life unfold to a certain degree to pull certain aspects of it out more, and to be exposed to things that, help you to understand what you're dealing with.
Where does oneness and love come into the work that you do?
Well, it's everything. I mean, my work is more about that than whistleblowing or ufology or anything like that. That's sort of secondary. I mean, my real mission has to do with unity consciousness. And what does that really mean? It's not about us all being the same, but it's about being authentic. It's about being sovereign. It's about breaking free of these controls. It's about recognizing what we're truly made of and how interconnected we are to the earth and to the multidimensional cosmos. It's in our DNA. I look at how we've been compromised, where and when we initially became compromised. What is our galactic history? What is the history of this earth? What is the hidden history? And it's all good news, because what it means for us is, we're in this window period right now where we're in alignment with the galactic plane. Andromeda and Milky Way as galaxies are one again, as, one galactic core that helps us to connect with our galactic chakras, the 7 higher heavens, and the things that we've been separated from as we've been looping in this wheel, reincarnating again and again. And like, what is that all about? I mean, we used to be far more advanced. So to me, it's really about returning to that, returning to being, sovereign, knowing how to win the war. And that's really an internal process that we all have to take upon ourselves to get our consciousness back, to be empowered, to not have anybody else running our beings, whether that's some sort of propaganda or control mechanism coming through mind control or social engineering, or it's the lack of information we've been given. And so we're operating from a limited viewpoint. How can we expand beyond that and live the real human experience, not the one that's been engineered or designed for us to be fed upon, because, our life force is harvested when we give our power away and when we don't recognize who we really are.
But then who really knows at the soul level really why we came here? If we knew the experience was going to be this tough, it must have been very important to have come here. So there's got to be some much bigger reasons why we're here than what we are currently aware of. No matter how much we try to channel it or try to bring in a higher self, maybe there's only so much it's going to tell us about really why we're here. Maybe there's some much bigger reasons at play. Who knows?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we've been sort of locked into this 26,000 year cycle, not really able to fully break free. And so, we sank into this lower density, and, there's 2 exploded planets in our history. So there's the fragmented consciousness that comes from that, and, compromised DNA and having amnesia every time we're born. And, now it's like the lights are all turning on and we're able to really see it. I mean, there's multi-generational DNA damage that gets passed down to us that keeps us sort of locked into.
What if we really wanted that amnesia? What if our soul wants the amnesia so we don't remember, so that we have this illusionary human experience, and it allows us to think that this is all there is, so that we have this experience because this is so important, this human experience?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, we're in a free will universe, and we're learning the right use of power. We're learning to repair our soul architecture. These different archetypal energies that have, been in opposition to each other are not completely on the same page, where, look at the Anunnaki with Enki and Enlil, or, some of these mythologies of Osiris and Isis, and the Christ Sophia energy, and how Tiamat, the planet, exploded, and the balance of the masculine and feminine was off. So if we've lost that balance, we're going to be needing to have experiences that help us to regain that balance and regain that clarity. And through experience, that's how we get it. So I think some souls want the amnesia and others absolutely don't. And they want to remember again, and they feel, that they're being locked out of their own house. Whereas others, might need the limited experience in order to gain the lessons, or, whatever it takes to.
I would say the majority want the limited experience, from my own personal viewpoint.
Well, it comes that because we're born into captivity, and if you're born into captivity and it's a multi-generational sort of captivity, you become so unfamiliar with your own natural habitat that you avoid it. It doesn't feel comfortable to you. You don't want to be expanded into it because you're not used to it. It's not comfortable anymore.
Well, most people are dealing with, issues on divorce, homosexuality, what used to be AIDS back in the day, real subjects that affects real people's lives. That's what they're dealing with right now.
But they have to break through the programming. I mean, if we can see, how some of these diseases are engineered in order to compromise the population, or they target certain groups of the population, do we want that experience for what? To break through it, or to be a victim to it? I mean, it depends on the level of, where that soul is at. And you're going to gain no matter what, even if there's adversity, even if you're compromised. I mean, we don't have full amnesia. We have memories of trauma from our past lives that we can't fully explain. We have affinities to certain things, passions and inspirations that we can't fully explain. We might, find ourselves drawn to a certain country or certain individuals that we have past life experiences with. So, we unconsciously function off of these memories, but our ego, our conscious mind, isn't fully in access to it. So it has the experience it has, and the experience can offer one the ability to expand into a greater knowingness and self-awareness, or we can stay limited and continue to give our power away to things like the medical industry that doesn't know how to properly deal with diseases. I mean, kids are thrown pharmaceuticals. The cure for cancer isn't really a real cure. It's, if you catch it in time, radiation might knock it out, but, that makes you really sick. When there's hidden cures that we're not being given, that, cost pretty much nothing. And preventative measures we could be taking that could be presented to us in our childhood, but instead we're getting vaccinated, we're being given tainted food, tainted water. And do we want that? Do we want that experience? Maybe to be able to crack the code and recognize, like, wait a second, the herbs of this earth, the plants of this earth, what comes natural to our, consciousness, we're being steered away from it, because the earth provides everything we could possibly need to heal, but we're given this synthetic
medicines that don't cure, but they just mask symptoms. And is that really what we want? So what is the deeper soul longing? And it's a very individual thing. You know, some people don't want to take that journey. You can have a family member who's dying of something, and you can send them all sorts of great information. And they say, no, I'm just going to do what my doctor tells me. I'm not interested in that. They don't want to go there, but somebody else might say, hey, I'm not going to do the chemotherapy. I am going to, do baking soda or, take turmeric or, or get exercise or change my diet, change my belief systems, change my lifestyle, and really heal holistically. So each soul has a choice. And if a soul's not ready, then they might come again for a similar experience until they feel ready to shed the program. Yeah. To get to the core truth of what we're truly capable of, which is way beyond what we're being taught. So the quest for the human soul has to have the willpower and the desire and the willingness to go outside the comfort level, to find that what's outside the comfort level is far more comfortable and far more familiar. It's just we're not used to it. So we avoid it because it shakes the foundation of what we've been taught. And people give far too much respect to the authority figures in their lives. Like, well, my teacher didn't teach me that, or the doctor didn't tell me this, so I'm not going to listen. But what is your soul telling you? What are your physical symptoms trying to, what messages are they sending you? If you just do the inner work and you go into the root of it, you can heal yourself. But are we taught that? Are we taught how to grow food in school? No, we have to learn calculus, even if we don't like math. I mean, we're just being shoved into a direction that, is a dualistic system that, produces like either successes or failures. Instead of believing in that, we should look at the word failure and say, maybe you're being pulled into another direction that holds a lot more for you than the projection that, you just don't have what it takes to be a successful individual. I mean, there's a whole nother level of learning we're not even presented with. And so, okay, if we're not listening in class, we're given drugs for it. If we get depressed, why aren't we taken further into ourselves? Why are we trying to mask that? Or why do we project upon ourselves that we're the person with the problem and the issue when we're born into a sick world that, having these sort of reactions is actually healthier than just being in a trance and trying to just have a happy face thinking this is the human condition, because it actually really isn't. This is all programming. I mean, the male and female distortions have been around throughout history. There's been dark technologies to affect the grid lines on the planet, the Earth grids. Everything's been put in reversal so that we digress and we move into artificial timelines, transhumanism, where our advancements as a human race has to do with merging more into a machine and into, this simulated artificial intelligence.
But if that is the case, as a soul, before we came here, we knew this bigger truth, and yet we still came here.
Well, we came here to experience that, and and we have a choice. And so why are some people on a path towards ascended mastery, or I know those words can trigger different things for people, and then some are on a path of digression. I mean, we look at these races; they've lost their reproductive organs, they have to clone, and these darker agendas and the entities connected to them have lost their connection with source, and so they're parasitic. They feed off the human race. Why are those programmings there? What's the purpose? To feed on us. So we're here to experience limitations so that we can begin to then experience expansion. And that's not something we attain externally. We attain that through self-knowledge. I mean, even the mythologies of the tree of knowledge and the tree of life are really based on our DNA. The tree of knowledge takes us into duality so that we learn how to integrate polarity and move beyond duality. But we need the soul experience and the life lessons to do that. But if we're being distracted away from it and knowledge has been targeted with mind control, it's going to be very difficult. So yes, we came into this experience to be pushed against a wall, so to speak, so that we break through the barrier. But yes, we can choose not to, and we can say, hey, I'm voting for transhumanism, and to be compromised. And if that's what a soul wants to experience, then the soul has the free will to do it. But if we don't have the information outside of those programs, then it seems very unfair. So it's my main work is about, shining a light on the hidden realms, our unconscious self, our hidden history, so that when we are making free will choices to the best of what we're given as free will, we're making choices from greater clarity instead of what we've been handed, because there is a manipulation there. Why is our water tainted? Why are there nuclear plants put on, fault lines? Why are all these disasters happening? Why aren't we really advancing as a human race? Because it really doesn't look like
We are, but at the same time, consciousness is. And when that consciousness spreads, people have the discernment to see an event that takes place and recognize it as a false flag, recognize that 9/11 isn't what they presented to us, recognize that, there's hoaxes and, things that we have every right to dig into. And why would we want to vote people into office who are betraying us? It's just like if you're in a marriage with somebody who's cheating on you, you might wanted to have signed up for that experience, but do you want to remain in it? Do you want to be with somebody that's betraying you, or do you want true love? So do we want the true authentic soul experience, or do we want to give our power to deception? And I'm not saying they're all deceptive. There's a lot of really well-intentioned people in intel groups and in these 3-letter organizations that see what's been going on, that are trying to do what they can. We see these indictments happening too. We see pedophile rings being busted. But is this a new thing? No, it's been around for a long time, and it's finally coming out of the woodworks. And, all these splinters are coming to the surface that, have been running for the sake of, control, using the life force of children in order to gain power. And these, aren't lies. This isn't disinformation when it comes to the reality of this. I have a lot of clients and a lot of friends who have broken through the programming of things like monarch mind control. There's sex slaves in the, there's satanic ritual abuse. It's so much darker than we can imagine. But does that mean we need to be in fear? Is this what our experience is? It's to bring us closer to liberation and divine justice. When we get closer to our own sense of personal sovereignty, all the things that have compromised us come out of the woodworks. Just like when we really learn about ourselves, we have a stronger capacity to heal, and we rid ourselves of parasites and disease and viruses, and we increase our immune system. But we have a choice to ignore our immune system or compromise our immune system by staying limited. So we have a choice to work with what's organic, and for the hidden agendas to come out of hiding, or we can stay limited and have them harming us harming us in all sorts of ways. It's hiding in plain sight. I mean, we know I think we're all pretty well aware that there is some level of ritual abuse going on. And it's in Hollywood, it's in the political world, and there's something going on. There's no doubt. I mean, look at the dollar bill. And the symbolism, and people break free of these unbelievable stories and controls, and the stories are very similar. And you can just Google monarch programming, and it'll say it right there. And there's a lot of information that's very detailed.
Yeah, I think it's great to highlight all this stuff, and I got to a point in the end of my journey where I kind of walked away from a lot of the stuff where it comes, because I thought, well, listen, there's never a solution. What is the solution, right? Conspiracy? No, that's not the solution. No, okay, what is this? It's a spiritual solution. I need to. I can't change my world, but I can change myself. Right, I'm going to try giving that a go.
Exactly. And that's exactly my point. I mean, we can't fight the system. I mean, what does that do? It's like, oh yeah, you're busted. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll change. Oh yeah, we won't be satanic anymore. Or yeah, we won't use these dark technologies anymore. It's like, they're not like, they don't have that kind of mindset to be like, oh, okay, we'll change our mind. Yeah, okay, you've busted us. Or, oh yeah, we can get them all in jail too. I mean, well, that's the hope. I mean, things are starting to move in that direction. But the whole deal is and I'm kind of redundant about it, but we have to win the war within, the war on consciousness. And we do that through self-awareness. We do that with the inner work. The thing is, when we move into higher earth energies, we're turning on dormant strands of DNA. And when we turn on dormant strands of DNA, and when we expand our consciousness beyond these limitations, it does change the physical world around us. We do see this timeline unfold as one that's progressing forward in a beautiful way. But we might see a completely different timeline if we weren't to do that, but we might not understand why. We might just think, well, we're at the mercy of all of it, and there's nothing we can do about it. Each individual can do something about it, and do their little part of, helping to inspire, the human race. I mean, I don't get caught up in all the conspiracy stuff. I'm aware of it. I talk about it. But the real thing is, who are we? What are we really made of? And let's look forward to the fact that we can fall back on ourselves more and shift the world around us through
I like that. The war on consciousness. That's kind of cool. And I guess those that live a reality where it is all negative, maybe they're just running on a different different parallel timeline to us. They're in a different Earth to us. When we talk about, when Dolores Cannon talks about the new Earth, or when we talk about the new Earth, I mean, there's probably billions of different realities out there. I mean, there's not just one new Earth. There's probably a whole array of realities that we can shift to at any one time. Our soul is probably shifting to different realities all the time based on our truth.
Right, totally. Our frequency, our beliefs, and beliefs can bring us closer to our own sense of personal truth, or we find our beliefs don't really serve us and they compromise our health and our well-being, and so we might want to adjust that. So I always like to be incredibly flexible in how I work with that, and I listen to my body. I listen to, my intuition. I look at what life is presenting to me and what do I need to do with that experience in order to take it to a higher level. So yeah, we're multidimensional beings. There's all sorts of different things that we can experience. I mean, the universe is vast. Our creative imaginations are vast, and if our creative channels are tuned into something or taking the instructions from somewhere, whether that's our higher self, source energy, or a mind control program, that's going to affect what we manifest. So we're all at different levels of all of this. But once we really break free and we find our sovereignty and our co-creative abilities to work with nature and cosmos, the sky's kind of the limit. But, the whole deal is we want that experience. And if we don't, then that's a person's going to experience what they're going to experience. But there is no one truth. I mean, there's facts that have been hidden that might be proven, or there's enough people saying the same thing to where beyond a reasonable doubt it's probably true. But the real truth comes in, like, what is your truth? What is your inspiration? What is your design? We're authentic, unique beings, but the oneness to me is diversity and harmony. How can we appreciate our differences without turning it into competition and war? That's an old paradigm model. That's part of the program to keep us conquered and divided. Can we be sovereign beings and blend together in harmony? While we're all sort of sharing this dimensional space together, and that's a nice thing to be able to do. We might see us all shifting on a mass scale, but yeah, there's another timeline that maybe that's not happening. But what is our thought forms? What is our creative energy doing to pull us into a completely different scenario? So, when we purify ourselves, our negative ego, when we purify or work on healing ancestral patterns, or we break free of social engineering things where they're trying to encourage us to be something we're not. We see people trying to fit in or join this or join that. If we can just step away from it and just ask ourselves, does this really serve us? Is this really where happiness lies, or contentment? We have the power to shift it. So consciousness is just important, just awareness, and being a creative being. That's what we are. We're creative beings, and we enable these dark agendas when we don't find ourselves outside of it all, and we don't self-reflect or do the inner work, because we're not at the mercy of anything.
No,
unless we choose to be.
No, we're definitely not. No, I do truly believe that we can create the reality that we want. And it's not that difficult. We've just got to be true to ourselves of what we really want. And that's the hard part sometimes, is just realizing, well, what is my passion? What is my purpose? What's my contribution going to be?
And what are my attachments? Because some people are just really afraid to step out of whatever they have grown accustomed to. That attachments to certain friends, or the frustration of, oh, they think I'm crazy. This is too difficult. I can't do this. Or what will so and so think? Or if I leave my job, I won't have any money, even if it's a job you don't agree with. And we have to know that the universe has our back. The more we step into our true self, the synchronicities are there. The divine flow is there. Mm-hmm. And it's not about taking risks that are going to, scare you, but, beginning to integrate your higher self, your wisdom body, your passions and inspirations into your physical lifestyle, so that you're not bouncing back and forth between your higher and lower self. Okay, you get it, but you're not changing your life. You're not anchoring it into your physical experience to where physical reality can change. You're just kind of going back and forth, still compromising,
certain things. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, we've been taught making money is more important than serving a higher, calling. So it's very hard for people to hear that higher calling because, it doesn't make a lot of money, or what if, because we've been taught there's too much of a survival concern. We're in a survival energy, and we can move beyond that and thrive and not be so dependent on the money system, on, all this stuff. It's not something that can happen overnight without it may be, being incredibly challenging.
Well, I think that puts a lot of people off living their passions sometimes, doesn't it, when it comes to the money? As you said, there's no money in this, I can't do it, my friends are more advanced than me when it comes to all the properties that they own, and, they've got it sewn up for their later lives and everything else. I'm still sat here and nothing's coming in. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, I'm not, but you can create, we're abundant beings. Abundance doesn't always come in the form of money. A person can, get their basic needs met. They might not have the security of having a ton of money tucked away, but, it's a greater form of trust. We have to learn to trust ourselves. We have to, learn to trust the natural forces and the role of spirit in the world. Because the thing is, when we turn around these reversal energies, we're alchemists. The thing is with these reversals, physicality has held dominion, where disease and money issues, survival issues have been what we've grown accustomed to. When we can really direct our attention on spirit without it having to be dogmatic or religious, unless that resonates with a person, you begin to really, recognize that there is, an incredible flow of energy that will support you and take care of you. I mean, it's the planetary consciousness. It's the nature of the mother. And, I think it's hard for people to wrap their heads around what Mother Earth really means and what her role has been and what she represents and the history of this planet and how it was, created. It's really important stuff to look at because, when we can see it just beyond earth, air, fire, water, and here's animals that we're surrounded by on the planet, and we look into the deeper consciousness of this planetary body and what she holds for us and how we've been separated from her, and, the whole Trinity, really. And it's been rewritten in sort of religious texts that have begun to turn people off so that they dismiss all of it. We don't feel like there's a whole lot we can, trust or recognize in these greater forces. And so the presence of spirit, the ether, the fifth element, ether, is what we've been not able to fully connect in with. Those our ability to connect with it, was compromised. The Platonic solids, the sacred geometries have been compromised. And so the coding and the scrambling of some of this stuff has made it difficult for our DNA to heal or upgrade. And so, just stepping outside of it all and just taking the time to do the inner work without the projection of, I'm being lazy, I'm not being responsible. It's like we really could use that extra time and not just, be blindly going through the motions of being human.
Right, absolutely. And also, how can you also do readings as well, don't you? Astrology readings and some other forms of readings as well. Could you just tell us about how people can get in contact with you for that as well?
Yeah, my website's down at the moment, but my email is laurabe4@gmail.com, and that's B as in like boy, E as in elf. So laurabe4@gmail.com. So people are just sort of contacting me just through email, and basically, I help you to understand the map of the zodiac, how it, what that means, how to break free of some of the more limiting patterns, how to work with them, utilize them in order to grow and to, see maybe things that you recognize about yourself, but you're not really sure if it's real, to help kind of validate and bring in, your higher, greater abilities. And then to, help a person be liberated from the wheel to a certain degree, to know how to work with the patternings in order to become more sovereign instead of kind of looping in some of these patterns. And to also recognize your deeper soul journey, the larger picture. And I also work with like Galactic Tarot and the Mother piece. I've been doing that for more than 20 years. And I trained clairvoyant. I went to an institute for a couple of years and I bring in that as well. And it's just, it's using tools and also, that ability and which we all have, to kind of reinforce, some of the things that are coming through. Because I think it's important to work with tools to help ground the energy, because humans have filters as much as, you know, somebody might claim to be fully psychic. You know, it's good to have a tool like astrology to really anchor in and ground it more, to give it more validity.
Absolutely.
So that's what I work with.
Well, look, Laura, thank you so much for your time over the phone right now as well. I really do appreciate that. And we've been linking your email address up throughout this interview as well. And I'd just like to say, until next time, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me.